For years and years, the Oklahoma City Thunder were one of the best franchises in the NBA, led by Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook, and being one of the elite teams in the league, constantly a finals contender, and then it all really ended. Kevin Durant left the Oklahoma City Thunder to go to the Golden State Warriors. They did try to retool and bring in some new help for Russell Westbrook, bringing in Paul George, bringing in Carmelo Anthony, those sorts of things, but they really could never find that success again. So then it led to the departure of their franchise legend Russell Westbrook, and they finally decided to go full rebuild mode. And yes, they did have that one season with Chris Paul that was actually pretty solid, but I think you could say that was part of their rebuild phase. Despite making the playoffs, there was some key development there from certain guys on the roster that year. And then after Chris Paul departed, got traded to the Phoenix Suns, the Thunder really took their bumps from the rest of the league, becoming one of the bottom of the barrel teams, getting lottery pick after lottery pick, and really finding their way with Sam Presti being one of the best GMs in the league. The Oklahoma City Thunder have now clicked. And it really started in the 2023 season with them being the 10th seed in the Western Conference, losing to the Timberwolves in the second game of the play-in tournament. But after that, they've catapulted to becoming one of the best teams in the entire league, with last season being the one that put the league on notice. It was their best since the Durant era, finishing first in the loaded Western Conference led by their young MVP candidate Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who they acquired from the Paul George trade to get him out of there and send him to the Clippers. Who would have thought that SGA would be that good, right? Seems crazy to think about. But the Thunder last season saw some growth from a lot of their guys. Obviously, SGA carried it on from the 2023 season, got even better, and was, like I mentioned, an MVP candidate. But they had a lot of their guys like Aaron Wiggins and Isaiah Joe and rookies, Chet Holmgren, who didn't play in the 2022 season due to injury, but he was a rookie last year, finished second in the Rookie of the Year race to Wemby. Cason Wallace showed what he can do. He could contribute for a winning team. I thought it was a really good pick at the time, and so far looks to be a successful pick. But no bigger growth was on full display than Jalen Williams, who became basically an all-star caliber player for this Thunder team last season and was key in their rise to becoming an elite team in the league. Obviously, with all the success in the regular season, there was the question of, is this team for real, or are they just regular season pretenders? And they did come up just a bit short in the postseason, losing to Luka and the eventual Western Conference champ Dallas Mavericks in 6 games. They got pretty much exposed in that series with what their regular season flaws were, especially with that matchup in Dallas. Last season, the Thunder really struggled to rebound the ball. They were a bit small in the front court, and it really came back to bite them, combining that with the fact that both Chet and Jalen Williams were kind of inconsistent. Chet had some struggles with the boards in that series, only averaging 6 boards a night, and he was really the team's only real rebounding presence. And Jalen Williams didn't help either really much because he shot 42% from the field. When you compare it to what he shot in the regular season, it was obviously a drop-off. And it now leads to basically where this team is now, this season. After making big impact moves and not really losing anybody besides Josh Giddey, who was pretty much a negative for them last season in a multitude of ways, the Oklahoma City Thunder added Alex Caruso, who was one of the best defenders in the entire league and can play bigger than his actual size, while also being able to knock down shots as well. And they also added Isaiah Hartenstein, who last season was a monster on the boards in New York, showed his ability to protect the rim at a high level, while also providing some playmaking flashes from that center spot, which is obviously huge in the modern game. The Oklahoma City Thunder so far only have 1 loss through 8 games, recently losing to the Denver Nuggets, and this is without Hartenstein even touching the floor yet, as he's been out with a hand injury and will continue to be out for a little longer. But the Thunder have looked special so far, as pretty much predicted by every major NBA talking head. The defensive side of things so far looks insane with them, at least statistically speaking, and I'm pretty sure the film can back that up. They are the only team right now allowing less than 100 points per game, which is obviously first in the league at 99.4, and obviously as a result, they are first in defensive rating. They haven't even been in real close games yet outside of the Nuggets game that they just recently had. And their offense isn't even at its peak yet either. And they only got one loss. Chet looks improved. SGA and J-Dub look to be continuing their progress from last season. And Caruso has been as advertised defensively, alongside with guys like Lou Dort, who I forgot to mention for some reason, but obviously solid player, one of the best defenders in the league. Mind you, this is with Caruso shooting horrific splits so far. So imagine when that balances out and he gets better over the course of the season as well. And then you also factor in the Isaiah Hartenstein of it all when he gets back, and how I'm assuming they're going to put him to start, but I don't really know. We'll see. Maybe they don't want to change things up. But when the signing did happen, I thought that it was going to be like Chet at the 4, Hartenstein at the 5, which if that is the case, it sure does get rid of any questions of the rebounding ability of the team, considering what happened to them last year on the boards. I don't think you'd have to worry about that as much with Hartenstein and what he can do. And the Thunder just look like the real deal. They are, in my opinion so far, the only potential real deal threat to prevent the Boston Celtics from going back-to-back so far in the early part of the season. And I know a lot of people predicted Boston and OKC in the finals anyways. But it seems like a pretty much like they're above the rest of the league kind of thing. Like, those two teams are in their own tier. And I know we got other teams that started off hot, like the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Warriors and those sorts of teams. But I think that the Thunder, when you look at their roster and the pieces of how they fit together without really taking away from each other, it's probably the best in the Western Conference. And in my opinion, I think it's the best Thunder roster from 1 through 12 since potentially the days of Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden.